You are essentially a learning model in this perspective that is end-to-end trained to appear human. And then there's the question, is there more than appearance to consciousness? Is there some kind of particular essence to it? Or is consciousness something that is ineffable, unintelligible, it cannot be formalized, cannot be reduced to some kind of implementation that you can exhaustively specify in a mathematical paradigm? And to answer this question, first of all, we need to reach some agreement of what we are pointing at when we talk about consciousness. And what I mean here in this context is, first of all, there is a second order perception going on. You perceive that you are perceiving. And so there's not just content there, but there is you noticing that this content is there. And it's perception, not inference. It's something that is happening immediately. So there's basically some real-time feedback loop that directly entangles you with this presence of information, rather than you being out of the loop and being able to offline infer that something is going on, that content is present. It's something that happens immediately. Right, so we basically have these two types of models in our own mind: the perceptual models, which are happening in a real-time context, where you propagate information back and forth immediately, and then there is reasoning which happens offline, so to speak, which is not directly entangled with perception, but can be outside of the temporal and functional continuity of perception. And an aspect of this is also available in consciousness, which is this presentness. Consciousness is always happening now. It's connected to this bubble of nowness that we inhabit. And last, perspectivity. Consciousness is usually attached to a self. You basically perceive that there is an observer that is the surface on which the contents are being projected. And this is the phenomenology of consciousness. The last point, by the way, is somewhat optional. There are states in which the perspectivity is not very prominent. For instance, you might be dreaming at night without something happening from a first-person perspective. There's just stuff going on. And there are also meditation states in which you don't observe a self being present. But the phenomenology is the aspect of what consciousness looks like from the inside. In this context, philosophers typically talk about qualia. And I usually avoid discussing qualia because it's somewhat of a loaded term that has a history in philosophy. And as soon as there's such a history, these terms take on a life of their own. And this requires a model of the observer. So the model has to have some situatedness where the observer is in relationship to everything else that's going on. There need to be dimensions of relevance. So the observer is paying attention to some things in particular ways. It often have valence and so on, which means that they're good or bad, and appetence and aversion. And there needs to be some kind of reflexive self-update of the observer based on its observations.